My name is Noical. I'm a drone racing pilot, and I've been flying since 2019. Since then, I've become MultiGP's global top qualifier in 2020. I've taken second place at the International Open, and I've attended every single large event MultiGP race since I started racing. Um, I am a pilot who loves to test new things. I've always been on the hunt for the best possible video link or RC link, motors, frame, ESC. I've tested everything, and I'm really the kind of person who pushes their gear to the limit and past it very often. I break a lot of stuff. Um, and in my earlier days, I was kind of known as the guy who broke everything, but I'm trying to move that towards now the guy who wins everything. Um,
Yeah, and you deserve that
yeah,
because you put in more time, I think, than a lot of people do, and
yeah.
it's pretty impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, I practice at my home field a whole lot. I have a track, which was kindly sponsored by FPV Supply Co. I run their gates, and I've been flying fabric gates for a couple of years now. I think that made a big difference in my flying. But
Hmm.
I practice every single day I can when I'm at home. When I have free time, I'm on the simulator. Back when I started FPV, I used to fly on the simulator in class, and I got in a lot of trouble for that. But I just really love to race. Racing has been my passion for many years. I've always loved go kart racing, car racing in the simulator, and I kind of transitioned into drone racing from that too. I just really am a competitive person, and I love to win. So, yeah, that's who I am. Put short and simple.
Yeah, yeah, that's how everybody knows you, and I think a lot of people know you for working on making HDZero really, really good, and I think a lot of people probably don't know that at all. So, um, yeah, let's get into you and how you got started with HDZero and get into some of this interesting
Hmm.
background.
Yeah, so when I first started flying HDZero, it kind of just stopped being Sharkbite and transitioned into being HDZero. And that was the really early days when we just had the micro camera and the Nano V1. And I mostly flew the Nano V1 back then, which was 16 by 9 only and had a really narrow FOV on the default lens. And back then it was really in its early stages and it wasn't the easiest system to use for racing, but I could tell there was potential there because I flew it my very first race was a 2021 qualifier with it late in the year. And between my analog setups and my HD setups, I was pretty much right on pace, even though the camera was maybe not exactly what I wanted it to be, or the mounting solution wasn't what I was comfortable with. I had it on a 3D printed mount back then. But I noticed that the potential for it to be really good was there. The latency was super low, and the image clarity was really good for racing. I don't think I needed anything more than what I had, but what I did have made me feel like I was a lot more confident around the track. I could see other pilots better, and I could see the gates that were far out much better, and especially on the 2021 qualifier track, which again was the first race I flew it with. There was one gate on that track that was really high up, and with the multi-GP gates, they're white and they're blue. Against the sky, which is white and blue, it's pretty hard to see on analog. Often pilots would crash into that gate. It was the top gate after the start finish. Um, I noticed on HD I could see that gate so clearly, and I could just go full throttle straight through. And after that, I kind of fell in love with it. So that was one of my earliest memories of the HDZero. One of the earliest things I felt like, wow, this could really be big for racing. Was that moment.
Hmm. Nice. What kind of issues did you have back then, though?
Back then, I was using the Whoop VTX, and it didn't fit in the frame at all because the mounting is 25 by 25, and I was using a Switchback Pro at the time, which only has 20 by 20 mounting. So I had to 3D print a mount and put it on top of the stack screws and use long stack screws, and it was really an awkward build. Accessing the stack became really difficult, and so there was a lot to work on, and I'm really happy about how much it's progressed since then because if it stayed like that and, Carl and the team weren't invested in making it the best it possibly could be, then no one would use it. And it'd be nice to have for freestyle, but racing, it's just not going to happen. So the development has been crazy since then, I got to say. I'm really impressed with the HDZero team.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I can't remember if the development for that R2 VTX, the 20 by 20, was already kicked off when you started using it, or if he had kicked it off after he got the feedback from you about how awful it was to mount it. But so, but yeah, it's one of those. And yeah, I
Mhm.
definitely took that feedback to heart. The mounting was pretty bad. And then the other issue that we all had is this stutter that would happen
Yes,
periodically. Yeah,
HDMI Stutter.
yeah. How did that affect you?
So I first noticed that when I started flying the Micro V2 camera with the VRX and HDO2s. What happened was it would stutter out every once in a while, maybe every fifth battery, and it would be like a freeze, and then it would catch up and like blast through a bunch of frames really quickly, like it's just fast forwarding. And that really bothered me at first because I'd never experienced that with analog. It was always just like a continuous stream of data coming to my goggles, and it was really disconcerting. Um, and that kind of led into the development of the goggles because we had to find a fix for that. For racers, that just wasn't going to cut it. But I mean, the team worked super hard, and once again, we were able to resolve that, which I'm so happy about. The goggle came out so I just
Yeah, it
can't
did.
even. It's so
Yeah.
good.
Another surprising thing I learned is, yeah, you said that when there was breakup, when you're flying, when the breakup got bad, that it felt like it was stuttering, and
Yes.
now with the goggle, it doesn't feel like that.
No, I noticed that at the ice storm race last year, whenever I had really bad breakup, like more than half the screen going to static, I would get these stutters that felt like I was just getting less FPS coming to my goggle, and it was impossible to fly through. I just couldn't do it, and it was really frustrating at the time. So I'm super glad that the goggle fixed that problem. I feel like a lot of this interview is just going to be, well, we had this problem, but goggle fixed it, so we're good now.
It's all good. Yay,
Yeah, we're
goggle.
happy.
Yeah. So I think we already covered a lot of what makes flying HD0 better for you, but did you have anything else to say about that?
So I remember we had this meeting after 2020. We had this meeting after 2021 champs. Um, it was me, Carl, you, and Evan Turner, and maybe Levi Johnson. And that might have been it. I'm not sure, but we
Yeah,
were
I think
talking
that's right.
about like what can make HD0 better, what's going to make it more appealing for racers, and what do we really need to give us the extra push to make it the best thing out there. And what I always thought about was, well, in Velocidrone, the simulator that pretty much every fast pilot uses to progress and get better at drone racing, switching from 60 hertz on the monitor to 120 hertz or 144 hertz improved our lap times by seconds. It was a drastic leap in performance for us. And something that me and my friends have always talked about, like Propsicle, Levi, we're all kind of a close knit community, those top racer guys. But what we've always wished for was analog two. Um, we always wondered who could make analog two for us. We just wanted a continuous stream of data, low latency. We don't care about DJI's range or penetration, or any of that. It doesn't matter to us racers. What we want is the most frames we can possibly get with the least amount of latency. And to be honest, 90 hertz for us is kind of like that analog 2 that we needed. The image quality is better for sure. The colors are amazing compared to analog, and the clarity is way better. But we have that super low latency. It's lower than any analog camera, which is just, it's such a dream to fly. Correcting is so much easier now. Everything about flying 90 hertz is, oh, it's amazing. Anybody who wants to try, like, I'm happy to lend my goggles because it's a transformative experience for everybody I've given it to. Um, but yeah, that was the biggest thing that we wanted back then, 90 hertz, and the only way to do that was to make the goggle and to do all the development with the camera and sort all that out, which was really impressive at how quickly it got done. Actually, from idea to reality, it was like probably 8 months. Um, yeah, that was
No, a little
amazing.
more than a little. It was a little more than 8 months. A little more than
Well,
eight
that
months.
meeting was after champs, which was later in the year, right? It was November, and then we
Yeah.
had the prototype 90 hertz cameras in the summer, like late summer.
Was it that fast?
Yeah,
You might be right. Yeah.
it was
Man.
pretty fast.
Yeah, things moved really quick.
And
Yeah.
that first 90 hertz camera, I hope you can like get that audio clip I sent you. When I first
Yeah.
flew that camera and this, oh my God. I have flown 2 batteries, and this is the biggest change I've ever felt in my entire FPV career. It's so easy to fly fast, like ridiculously easy. I think this is like the single biggest thing racing has ever seen. So yeah, it's working.
Yeah, I think you said something like, "This is the biggest thing in my whole FPV career," or something like that.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
crazy.
I'll see if I can find that clip.
Um, but yeah, so after we started talking about that, that was just one thing I was holding out for with HDZero this whole time because I knew that was going to be like that was going to be so incredible for us racers, and it really is everything I'd ever hoped it to be. So I'm psyched about 90 hertz. Um, every time I fly, even still, I just can't go back to anything else. Like I'm ruined. I feel like we've been saying that a lot, but I'm ruined.
Yeah, no, I have that same experience. When I fly 90 hertz, I can fly faster, tighter, and then I'll switch back to 60 right after flying 90, and it's like, I don't feel right. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
But it's
gotta
not
slow
just
down.
about flying faster or tighter. It's also that you can correct mistakes way before you'd ever see them coming on analog or 60 hertz.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just watched Bardwell's video today, and he was talking about how, like, oh, I can have the confidence to do things that I never had the confidence to do before. That's because that extra little bit of information your eyes are getting is keeping you updated so much better about what's actually happening with your drone. Like, there's a time between each frame, and that time was super important. We didn't have it on 60 hertz. But with 90 hertz, like, every single movement is just like you can see it so much more clearly and you can see everything the drone's doing more precisely. So correcting mistakes and seeing mistakes before they even happen has become so much easier and it's made me more consistent. And I think that played into why I was able to take third place at champs. Even when I was feeling nervous and I was shaking, I could stop myself from crashing because I knew exactly where my drone was on the track and I
Hmm.
wasn't just like shaking and crashing into a gate because I was too nervous. It was it was so helpful for me in that sense.
Yeah, yeah. And you said you do a little bit of kart racing, or is it actual
Oh
car
yeah,
racing?
I have a go kart of my own, and I go out with my buddies and I go race go karts a lot. Um,
Yeah.
and I also do sim racing on the computer. I play Assetto Corsa,
Hmm.
iRacing, all those games. It's another hobby of mine.
Yeah. And when I fly the 90 hertz camera, it feels like I'm actually in the seat of a car, right? And when I make a little adjustment on the wheel, I see it immediately happen
Hmm.
in the drone. And I've been flying some more latent video systems lately, and it's super apparent to me like there's a big difference between these. Yeah, the 90 FPS mode, it feels like I'm right there. It's almost like telepathic. It feels unlike anything else. So uh, it's cool. And you don't like to take too much credit for it, but I swear it was your idea, and I think Levi's idea. You both are like, yeah, we need 90 FPS.
Hmm.
Carl's like, yeah, I think I can do that if I lower the resolution.
Yeah, it seemed
And
like Carl wasn't like he was really hesitant at first, but like I'm glad we kept pushing, and we pushed him really hard for that. I feel like.
yeah, yeah, and it all worked. That turned out way better than I would have thought, Carl would have thought, anyone. So like really, thank
And
you
honestly,
for
it doesn't even feel
help.
like that much of a reduction in quality. Like
Right. When you're flying fast.
yeah, when you're flying and you're pushing like to be as fast as you possibly can, that part doesn't matter as much. I know it's HD video, but like it's not as important as those extra frames. It's a game changer. So first of all, it's that low latency with 90 hertz. That's the most important thing to me that I love about HDZero right now. And after all the waiting, it's just so nice to finally have it. It's been many months just praying for this day, and it finally came. So that's one of my biggest things about HDZero that I love. Um, and another thing I noticed is I can see the other pilots on the track so much more clearly. Analog pilots, they have no idea where somebody is. They could be like about to crash into you. You have no idea on analog because the clarity is just not there.
Mhm.
Everything's just a blur, it's streaky mess. And the colors just aren't clear enough to see like what's a drone and what's grass behind it. So being able to see other pilots on the track has been beneficial to me because I don't fly with a spotter personally. Um, every race I've ever been to, I've never used a spotter because I've just felt that being told to speed up or slow down or do something that I'm not like totally in control of has never helped me at a race. And all I ever cared about was seeing where the people are in relation to me. And with HD, I'm able to do that so much more easily. Um, the other pilots around me, I can see like when we take off, okay, there's Minchan 10 feet ahead of me. Not going to worry about him. But the people around me,
Yeah.
like that's important. And I can crash
Situational
into those people.
awareness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like so you do kart racing, and it's
Hmm.
super important not to crash into other people,
Yeah. You lose so
particularly
much
or
time.
yeah, or even with virtual car racing. That's a super important aspect
Yeah.
of racing is knowing where the other guys are and playing around with them and not crashing into them, not just blindly, you know, blasting into the side or the back of
Yeah.
another guy that's racing. So I do think it will change things a little bit when people get that enhanced situational awareness, and I think we'll see more what I would say like real racing where you have real overtaking happening, where it's not just trying to blast through someone.
Hmm.
So
And
yeah.
speaking of situational awareness, with HDZero, you can see the guy wires on ladders. Those guy wires are deadly. And analog pilots always crash into guy wires. Like, trust me, they hate them so much. But every time I go to a race, my local pilots, they put up the guy wires. Everybody's like crying, no, guy wires. What are we going to do? We're going to die. And analog pilots would be crashing into those guy wires. But on HD, I can see them. And I haven't hit a guy wire since I switched to HDZero.
So I suck, and I totally still crash into the guy wires at champs.
Yeah, pilot skill may vary your results.
Yes,
But
it's.
being able to see them at least gives you a chance. Before you had no chance.
Oh yeah, I could see it, and then I was like, it was like a magnet for me. I'm like, all right, I'm going for it. So yeah, it helps you though. I'd say it makes flying easier at this point, which is
That's what
crazy.
we
It's
need.
awesome. Yeah.
You can
So
focus on going fast and not on hitting stuff.
yep, yeah. So you want to get into the development of the goggles, the progress on that, and like the prototypes that you were dealing with, like the alpha goggles.
Yeah. So the first set of goggles I had, they were a bit of a mess. Huh? To put it perfectly honest, they were a bit of a mess.
Big
The
time.
RF board would fall out constantly. Like it was really scary because I actually took them to a race and they fell out. I had to take apart my goggles and shove the board back in between my heat and put it all back together and start flying with that like really sketchy pair of goggles. Maybe wasn't advisable, not the safest thing, but I mean, I got through that race and I won it, so it was okay. Um, yeah, they were these 3D printed, big, chunky boys. Um, but even there, like I saw the potential in that goggle because the first time I put it on, it felt so much smoother than the VRX ever did.
Hmm.
Like it was night and day, and I flew so much more confidently. Even on the 60 hertz camera with those alpha goggles, it was amazing for me. So there was problems for sure, and I'd say about 40% of the time I turned them on, they didn't work. But okay, actually, 70% of the time I turned them on, they didn't work.
Oh man.
But that 30% was really nice. There was
You
this
know, right?
loop I got into, like flipping the switch on and off for 30 minutes at a time, just trying to get it to boot because the firmware
Wow.
wouldn't actually turn on. and then I would
Dang,
just
I
leave
didn't.
it plugged in all day. And I would never, I had this big battery, and I would find the one time where it would boot, and I would never turn the goggle off. And I just leave it on for my entire practice session.
You didn't tell me it was that bad. Wow.
I didn't want to bother you too much, but yeah, that sucked.
Yeah, you were
And
very
the most
dedicated to
frustrating
that
thing
goggle.
was you had it working, it booted up, you put the goggle down on the table, and the RF board fell out, and you have to take it apart and do the whole thing again.
Oh man, that stinks. Okay, I didn't know it was that bad, but
Production
it must.
goggles
Yeah,
don't do that.
no, they
They're
don't.
good.
Oh man. Okay. And I remember the other really bad thing about that goggle was you had the original prototype of the optics.
Hmm.
So it was the optics even were 3D printed, and I think the left side didn't focus.
Yeah,
It,
so I had this great little trick. Pretend it's a goggle. Actually, wait, I have a goggle. One second. HDZero goggle for reference. This is the beta, I guess, the second prototype. Um, but yeah, this optic wouldn't focus. So I had this neat little trick. You told me I had to take apart the goggle and move the optic by hand and then never touch it again. That was not working for me because every time I put the goggle down on my table, it would unfocus itself. So I get the goggle like this, check it out, see, where the optic landed. If it was a little too far forward, flip it upside down, hit the other way. Too
oh
far
man.
backward, face forward, give it a smack. And I'd do that, 5 minutes, good to go.
People have no idea how good they have it now with the production unit.
Yeah, I mean, it was like he was living in a third world country back then, pretty much.
But it
Gotta do it
worked.
by
Hey,
hand. Yeah, when I got
yeah.
that focus right, when it turned on, when the RF board didn't fall out, it was nice.
Yeah. I don't think I see other FPV companies sending out basically engineering samples,
Yeah,
development samples to pilots to go and beat on. It's I mean
literally.
maybe they like literally. I mean maybe they are, but yeah, Carl was just like, yeah, it's okay. You can show it all out in the open. Just just
We're open source,
practice,
baby.
use it.
That's how it
Yeah.
is.
Oh, that's cool to hear that. Um, cool. All right, so let's get into how Champs 2022 went. Kind of covered that a little bit, but you had the 90
Mhm.
FPS cam for that, and that's the first time that other people besides you had it too.
Yeah. So at Champs this year, when we showed up, it was me, Corey Banez, who's Miwo FPV. He was a DRL pilot for a short time. We had Lehan Vander. Um, he's he's a good pilot for sure. He has really amazing cinematic skills. Got to go check out his YouTube. Um, we had
Engineer.
Patrick White, engineer. He took second place at last year's champs,
Hmm.
2021 champs. So he's the reserve champion. He's an amazing pilot. And so we all came in with this new system with the 90 hertz cameras, the prototype goggles, and right off the bat, didn't work. And that was pretty stressful.
Yeah.
um, so there was one issue we knew we had coming into the race. It was that we had these horizontal lines of noise going across the screen that
Oh yeah.
were pretty visible at night, but they didn't really, stop you from being able to fly. It wasn't a problem. Um, but we had an issue where the firmware we were using with the 90 hertz cameras had a smart audio bug and it wasn't working properly. So our VTXs would overheat and go into low power mode. And on the line, we wouldn't be able to take off because we had no video. And so on our first day of qualifying, that was what was giving us all trouble. And I think Corey was the only one who was really able to fly because he wasn't using the same smart audio we all were or something. But that was super stressful going into the race with that problem. And we reached out to you. We were all basically crying about it, and the team they fixed it for us. They gave us a patch that uh, turned off the smart audio. It worked really well. So after that, everything was smooth sailing, actually, at least for me. The other pilots, I think they couldn't figure out the camera settings to get a good image at night. And I think Patrick White
Hmm.
was getting bothered by that. But it didn't really bother me. And I was able to fly pretty well with it. And as soon as we fixed that VTX bug with the smart audio, I was able to qualify fifth place in the standings. And that was just like, it kind of confirmed for me that, okay, 90 hertz is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Because this was a field of pilots that has been the most competitive of any championship race that I've ever been to. And for sure, any multi GP champs, none of them have ever been this competitive. So qualifying fifth was like, I was really happy with that result. And I feel like I couldn't have done it with my old setup. So yeah, thanks 90 hertz. Really helped out there. And at the race, what I noticed was I wasn't crashing. I was recovering every little mistake I made, and I
Hmm.
was holding it together much better than I would normally do on the other. Like on 60 hertz, I crashed a lot more. And I remember at IO 2022, where I placed second, the one time I crashed in that race was my fault. I crashed because I just misjudged where a gate was. Um, but at Champs, I never had a crash that was any fault of my own. I only crashed because Minchan slammed into my back one time. Other than that, zero crashes in the whole race. So I really think 90 hertz played a big part in that. I could see exactly where my quad was, and I had better spatial awareness so as not to clip the gates where I normally would. It helped me be a lot more consistent at the race, and I finished third. So there was some technical difficulties at the end, but it wasn't related to HDZero at all. I just had an ESC malfunction. I could have placed a little bit
Oh yeah.
higher, but it was thirds. I'm pretty happy with. Third was good.
No, I think this year's going to be good because we got a lot of these gremlins kind of shook out of the system,
Hmm.
particularly the hardware ones. Do you remember the other issue that we had? It took like 20, 25 seconds to get a lock on.
Yeah, the syncing issue. So I have yet to try the 90 hertz camera with the new goggle because I don't have the production 90 hertz cameras. So cannot confirm if this issue is still present, but I've heard it's not. Um, it would take about 20 seconds to get the image totally locked on. And if you took off before the image would lock on with the goggle, you would get this weird combing effect where the scan lines would like turn sideways and they'd merge with each other. And the whole image would just move in a way that was really unexpected and hard to fly through. Um, and so it wasn't really a problem at a race because, we'd have our drone sitting on the line for 1 to 3 minutes at a time. And we'd always get locked before we took off. So that was never a problem for me. But when I practice at home, I have lots of batteries and I have lots of drones. And I just fly like 45 seconds for each battery, land, rip the battery off, and I have a stack of batteries waiting next to me. Just put the next one on, plug it in, and I arm and take off. And that's my normal way of practicing because I like to fly upwards of 100 packs, 150 packs in one day. So
Jeez.
to get that many batteries of practice, you need to be, rapid fire getting these packs in. And with the prototype goggle, there was that lock on issue. It means I have to wait for 25 seconds each time I plug in my battery. And I was really frustrated by that. Um, it did have an added benefit, though, something that I never really expected. I stopped burning motors because I was trying to think of, okay, how can I waste this time where I'm not flying? Like, what's something I can do where I can just get into a routine and not just be sitting in my chair waiting for my goggle to lock onto my camera. I would pick up my drone, I'd walk around to the side of my house, which is where my practice field is, and I had this little hose on the side of my house, and I would just hose off my motors under the hose water um, while my drone was plugged in. I used a stack saver, 533 stack saver. Go pick one up, protects your stack from water. I would use that to protect my stack, and I'd just wash off my motors under the hose, and I'd go set it down. And by then, it's about 25 seconds. It's really a perfect amount of time, actually. And I just take off and go fly as hard as I could. Motors never burned after that. So I guess I have HDZero to thank for saving me a few $100s in motors.
Nice pro tip. I never would have known. I have a fan. I have like a fan I turn vertical and then I just set the drone on top of it.
The way I thought of it is like, okay, with a PC, you can have water cooling or you can have air cooling. And everybody says water cooling is better. So, why not put on the motors? That's all
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying.
Why not just dribble a bunch of water on your drone?
Yeah. I only had
Cool.
one FC die. Only
Okay.
one. But that was pretty good
Yeah,
for
I think
me.
the other things that you were killing left and right were the VTXs when running directly on 6S voltage.
Yeah.
So,
Um, Running the VTX on 6S, the V2 race VTX, it just does not like it. And I thought I was killing them because I was crashing really hard. I crash a lot. When I'm pushing to make my fastest racing videos, to make the best DVR, I'm pretty much crashing every third battery. So, like, I crash a lot. I'm not going to say that I don't. I know some pilots like to lie about that. Uh, but um, yeah, I was breaking a lot of ETXs. And what you suggested to me was I could run on a 10-volt regulator, but I was always saying like, no, I don't want to put a 10-volt regulator in my build, and I was using Foxeer BMS V2 FCs because they had the MP6000 gyro,
mhm.
um, and I wasn't liking how the new FCs were performing with their BMI gyros or the ICMs. I still didn't really like those. Um, so I just wouldn't put a 10-volt regulator on it, and I was burning crazy amounts of ETXs. But after I switched to a 10-volt regulator, which is built into the FC on the Foxeer 8S FC Fluid Champs, I pretty much haven't broken a VTX since then, unless I actually snapped a top plate into it or something.
Yeah,
So they're a lot more durable than I initially thought they were.
which
You
is
just have
good.
to run them on the right voltage. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Things you learn. So, yeah, this year,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we know all the issues. Most of them have been resolved, or there's a known thing that you should do, like run it on a voltage regulator.
Yeah.
So, really
I mean,
looking
I've pretty
forward
much
to.
encountered every problem that can possibly happen.
Yes, you
So,
have, because I mean, if you're flying 100 to 150 batteries a day, you're going to
mm-hmm.
find things that people aren't going to find otherwise.
Yeah. That's why companies love me because I tell them my stuff doesn't work.
It's true. All right. So, how do you think things are going to go in 2023 for HDZero racing?
Um, I really hope more people switch to it, first of all, because I know 90 hertz is definitely has potential to be the best video system that exists for racing right now. Um, so if we see more organizations like FAI, um, if they start adopting HDZero, if they use the event VRX at their races, I think more international people are going to start switching to it, and that's going to be really big for just the global racing community because the more people we have on HDZero, the more easy it is to attend other races globally. And for pilots like me, that's something I really want to do. But if they don't have the VRX, then I can't attend that race. So I'm really hoping more organizers switch over to it. And I do think that's going to happen this year because now more pilots are going to be looking into it with the 90 hertz upgrade and the goggles. This is what everybody's waiting for. And I heard forever last year, like, oh, I'm waiting for the goggles to come out. I'm waiting for the camera to come out. Things like that. Now that it's out, I really hope to see more people switch to it and see the community grow.
Yeah, it's here. The goggles here, the
Mm-hmm.
cameras here. Um, Time for people to put their money where their mouth is, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And personally, I'm really excited to see how I'm able to grow with the new 90 hertz system because before champs, I only had the Nano 90 for like maybe 2 weeks or a week and a half before the race. And that's not enough time to learn how to use a camera, but I was still able to take third place at the race. And getting to know like the lens and just the FOV really, really well, like down to heart, is super important for flying because when we're flying as fast as we can in these races, it's a lot of muscle memory. And being able to tell where the drone is, like based off of what you're seeing with the lens, is super important. And that takes time to learn. So having more time to practice with this camera and getting more used to the setup I have now, I'm super excited to see what I can do in the future races.
cool. Yeah, totally agree. And yeah, last thing I got here is how do you like the final product now that you have it compared to those prototype units you were using?
I think it's completely night and day. Like every time I pick up when I first got the new goggle in the mail a couple weeks ago, the final version, it just felt so nice. Like thinking back to that 3D printed green prototype I had, where it literally didn't work most of the time, and having the final version in my hands and knowing that like I played a part in this, even if it's pretty insignificant, I did play a part, and I'm super happy with like how it all turned out. And just to be a part of this project has been really amazing. It's been a good experience.
Yeah. No, I assure you, you had a bigger role in this than you think. So I can tell you the 90 FPS thing wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for you. And yeah, just learning all the little small issues wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for you. So I think everybody owes you debt of gratitude for testing things as hard as you do and pushing things, and Carl to go and improve it. Um, it's
I'm not
awesome.
easy to please.
Really, thank you.
I'm pretty picky
No,
about what I fly.
yeah. So I think it's going to be an awesome 2023. And again, I think a large part of that is because of people like you.
Thank you
So
so much.
thank you. Yeah. All right. So I don't have anything else. So you want to say anything else before we take off?
I think that's pretty much it.